Today's episode's brought to you by the Blue Bag Podcast.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not too much. Just having entirely too much fun with the pre-show. You guys really need to make sure you're there for that.
Yeah, the pre-show that we do over at twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast is really starting to pop, and I would be surprised if we had more fun during the show than the pre-show. We already peaked at the pre-show, so
yeah, it's hard to argue with that. To be honest.
Yeah, that is in fact where the Blue Bag Podcast came about. But we will talk about that in just a little bit. But of course, we have some housekeeping to go over before that. First and foremost, we have some new patron hype. We got David C at the $1 level over at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. Thank you so much, David, for the support. You guys can always head over there to support us financially if you so choose. We do have, in that vein, I completely forgot to check, but we're just going to declare it now. Either next Friday or next Saturday. This is not entirely my fault. No, there you go. Okay. No, so what if it's Friday night? So it starts, the 12-hour stream starts during the day with me starting it, and then we finish it out and do the last 6 at night.
I can't do that.
Okay, then we're doing it next Saturday. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday. So not the 21st, but the 28th. We'll be doing a 12-hour stream for the show. Whoa. Because of the Patreon goal, which we hit a while ago, and now have just finally scheduled it.
We'll also include a game night. So we will be running games with listeners and viewers.
Yes.
So by all means, we'll be putting announcements in the Discord, helping advertise that a little bit. So make sure you guys check that out. If you haven't been to a game night for any of the Overwatch podcasts that are around, they're all so much fun.
Yeah.
I participate in a lot of them, and a lot of the other hosts will be there. I can probably get I Play Games, Blazin' Bob, Melorina, Kinder from Fragging Out. I can get a fair few people in. We might even be able to do a little bit of the podcasters team versus some viewers, depending on turnout. So by all means.
And I'm going to try to get some ATP alumnus as well, but I'm not making any promises yet for anyone, but we might see there might be some.
We'll put the word out. See what
we're going to be putting the word out for sure. So keep an eye out for that. That is going to be Saturday, the 28th of April. In the year 2018. So keep an eye out for that. And you can always head over to patreon.com/High Noon Podcast to support us there. And another place to support us is actually over here at Twitch, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. We are Twitch affiliates, so you can use your free Twitch Prime sub, Twitch Prime. You can always use that over here if you so choose. And many of you, of course, already have, and we thank you for that. But moving right along, let's talk about what the show has done in the last week. Around the Payload was off last week. It was just a weird week with the whole Dreamcasper thing and people not. It was just a weird week. So took the week off from ATP. But this week we've got a spicy episode lined up. There's some returning guests. There's some perhaps the most infamous guest of all will be returning. We've also got a few new guests as well. So that's gonna be fun. That's of course a Tuesday afternoon. This one's gonna be a little bit earlier. It's gonna be airing at 6:30 Eastern. We of course had an episode of Foul Play, so a fantasy Overwatch League play. And this is the spicy return of both you and myself. To the show. Shout outs to A Smith and Blazin' Bob for keeping the ship afloat when we were at PAX.
Yes, big thank you.
But we had a nice I feel like we're starting to really kind of get into our groove for that show and really kind of get a feel and a flow for it that I'm really liking. And of course, another episode of Ever Upward was recorded last week, and I'll be recording another one this week. I just haven't had the heart to do it with the loss, man. It's going to be the first episode I've recorded of the show where New York has lost, so it's going to be a tough one. But the show must go on.
The show was almost over. It was one point on one map away from just being shut down.
Oh yeah,
I'd have been hosting it.
Yeah. This is the Dallas FueLUL show, or this is the Blue Bag podcast.
It would apply for you guys if you'd lost 2 in a week. You could have called it the Blue Bag podcast.
It's true. That is certainly true. But let's talk about what we personally did last week. Deathblow, anything fun and exciting to talk about?
Yeah, a little bit more team practice, not a ton of time. We have this really funny situation going on where we sat down and we reviewed all the call outs for Kings Row. I haven't gotten to play it since we've done the call outs, did the review on it. And when we finally queued into it the other night, my power goes out while we're in the player selects. Really, it was just super funny.
Hashtag Buffalo April. A literal snowstorm outside right now.
Yeah, right now, ice storm that night. It's been an interesting April to say the least here, but I'm finally getting to adequate levels of tracer play.
Yep.
I'm still not carrying or doing anything crazy, but I'm just kind of doing the bare minimum and getting my job done and sticking a couple pulse bombs on occasion. So that's definitely been nice. And Hearthstone's been a lot of fun for the first time since 2016. So I've been trying to enjoy that.
Yeah, I've been enjoying Hearthstone a lot. I've been streaming Hearthstone a lot lately. It's been fun. I got this nice mage deck. I'm rank 1 3 stars, so I'll probably have legend. I'll probably hit legend. Actually, I'll probably never hit legend again, but I'm at rank 1 3 stars right now. Very, very close to hitting legend. So that's been fun. That's pretty much all I've been doing. But let's move on to my favorite segment of the show, and this one's going to be particularly good this week. That, of course, is the
Overwatch Today Meme of the Week.
I knew my button would work eventually. That is the Overwatch League, Overwatch Today Meme of the Week. And this week, we mentioned the Blue Bag podcast, and this all kind of ties together into one thing. But the meme of the week this week,
hang with us, Dallas fans. It's gonna be
the meme of the week this week is just it's the Dallas FueLUL, and it's just the Dallas FueLUL as an organization. I mean, I pulled this quote from Monte Cristo on Twitter, and the gist of it is, he goes, having known the Dallas FueLUL players in operation for the last 18 months, I think this move was wrong, was the wrong one for the team. And he goes on to explain, if you want to attract good coaches, you can't announce they have full control and then are seeing improvements or improving results and then fire them a few weeks later. It's fair. It's extremely fair.
We've been critical of Kai at times here, but we might as well just get the news out of there too.
We're moving on to
fake drop.
It's hot news.
All right, so Kai and Rascal have both been released from the Dallas FueLUL. There's long statements put out. There's been responses from players, both that are familiar with the situation, i.e. Fissure, and ones that were, part of the team or involved. Fissure spoke up and had some really valuable insight as a player that basically went through the exact same thing that happened to Rascal, leaving the London Spitfire. He left one day before, I believe, Rascal did. So very, very similar situations. But there's been a lot of comments here, and essentially, there was a lot of PR speak about Kai, and a lot of it, I think, was accurate, right? Like, he wasn't given the best situation. He didn't get to call all the shots. He didn't get to make all the decisions. And here he is taking all the blame for it. And that's kind of me reading between the lines of the statement, obviously not what the statement says, right? But I think the bulk of the blame for this situation really has to fall on the Dallas FueLUL as an organization. I think they have a very different structure than a lot of the other Overwatch League teams do. That's just we have no inside information here, just what it looks like on the outside. They look like they're poorly run, with management that doesn't spend every minute with the team making decisions over people, and head coaches that do sit with the team every day and watch every scrim and go over every bit of tape. And it's just a really interesting situation. And I thought even more interesting was the fact that they almost threw Rascal under the bus a little bit with their releasing of him. They said his unwillingness to cooperate with the team, that's what they cited as one of the main reasons why they cut him. So basically, they're just saying he was toxic, he had a bad attitude, he didn't communicate. Not even that he didn't communicate, it's that he refused to communicate. Like he could have, and there was no language barrier. Like they really just kind of didn't mention that. Right. And they just said, he didn't want to talk to us. And to be honest, you didn't see that from the outside. You look at what a lot of other teams do that are bilingual, have Koreans and English speakers on the same team. All of them have Korean translators. Where's Dallas's Korean translator? Can we give the guy an honest opportunity to succeed here?
Right.
The one thing I will say though, and this is something that Fissure kind of said as well. He came in and the work ethic wasn't there, the preparation wasn't there for the team and for the organization. So Fissure goes to the GM of the Los Angeles Gladiators and tells them, this is what we're going to need, right? Like if you want me to keep up, if you want me to be, this is what we're going to need to do. We need to change the way we operate a little bit. And at the end of the day, while I do think it's a little arrogant to join a team, whether they're low in the standings or whatever, like you're one person coming in and joining a team. And you're going to tell them what they need to do to change and how they need to be different. That's a little arrogant. But one thing I'll say is maybe the Los Angeles Gladiators needed a little arrogance on their team.
Yeah.
Like, it's not all arrogance has a negative connotation. It's not always bad though. It's sometimes it can help you and be a benefit.
It's a fine line between arrogance and confidence. And confidence is almost universally seen as good.
Right. But I don't think Dallas had a shortage of arrogance at any point, really, throughout even the humbling results. I never got that impression from them. And, the Gladiators, on the other hand, had all this talent, had the great support line, all this stuff, but they just needed that edge. They just weren't, I didn't think, living up to the talent that they had there on the roster.
Yeah.
So a change was in order for them, and the GM agreed with them, and the team agreed with him when he said it, and he went through the proper channels. Now, we don't know. Rascal could have done the exact same thing. He could have sat down with Hastro and said, if you want me to be here and be successful, we've got to do this, 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 and this. And maybe Hastro was just like, no, and that's why he ended up with a bad attitude. I don't really know, and it's impossible for us to know. But I just want to point out to everybody, like, don't paint Rascal in this negative light, right? We don't know why he was released from the London Spitfire, traded. It could have just been, hey, we don't plan to use him a ton and we think we can get a bunch of money from him. Right. So let's ship him to Dallas where he can't really threaten us anyways. And if honestly that was their plan and their thinking, mission successful. Right. Now he's not going to be on any team the rest of the way. Right. So they definitely don't have to worry about him. And honestly, even the Kai situation, it sounds to me like Castro wants to be Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys sell a lot of tickets. They sell a lot of jerseys, and they don't really win too many championships. So I don't know, what team do you want to be here? I don't think Kai was given a fair shake, and I do hope he gets a chance to coach again in Overwatch League. I think it should probably not be as a head coach right away. I mean, he's got to kind of get his feet back under him, get some confidence, learn to deal with the Reddit storm and the Twitter storm that comes your way. But on the overall, this was a pretty interesting and kind of surprising move here by Dallas at a time when, like, I don't know if I said it on the show already, but like A. Smith had confidence yesterday on foul play going into the Houston matchup. We're not confidence, but optimism. Right. And it's just, that's got to be gone now, right? Like they just seem like they keep hitting the reset button over and over and over again. You can break a reset button, guys. Calm down a little bit. Like, you've got to give changes time to mature. Like, the season's already gone, so this to me seemed a little rash. Like, I would have given Kai more time, at least through the end of stage 3.
Well, I mean, if you're going to, if your thought and your gut reaction is like, we want a new head coach, and you're pretty confident as Hastro, and you're confident that you want a new head coach, then I guess now is like, you might as well do it as soon as possible to try to get the new head coach in. And maybe like maybe that's what it was. Maybe like that thought is like, oh, well, let's give Kai a chance. Well, maybe when Hastro says Kai has the reins now, that was his chance. Now, I don't know what he was expecting. Like, how much better could the Dallas Fuel realistically have done? I mean, they've been showing market improvement, like Monte Cristo's tweet said. I think a lot of people put them a lot higher than they were a few weeks ago, but they're not going to be able to beat these meteoric teams. I mean, maybe I'm trying to think that what their last few matches were, but and maybe they, let's see, Shanghai they beat, and then they beat. Oh no, I'm looking at stage 2. Sorry. I mean, I don't know what they were expecting really. Like, is it like, okay, Kai, you have the full reins, and if you don't go X and O the rest of these weeks, man, you're out of here. You get 3 strikes. If you get 3 losses, you're done. It's like, well, it doesn't really seem like a good. It doesn't seem like a good way to run the team anyway. So I don't know. And in regards to Rascal, I can't even imagine how tough it must be being the only or one of only 2 people who speak Korean and trying to voice your opinions and voice your points.
3 once OGE got there.
Right, once OGE got there.
Half your roster was Korean, and you don't have a Korean translator. Like, that just to me,
right.
Like, we've talked about how difficult the language barrier is, and if I'm being honest, I haven't really felt like we've seen an example of it, like really rearing its head and shutting a team down or anything like that until now. But we can only imagine how difficult it is, right? Because I've never been thrust into a situation with 5 Korean people that I need to communicate with efficiently and quickly on the fly to see results in such a fast-paced game. I can't begin to imagine how difficult that would be. Right. And to not even hire the tools that you need. And when you hear Fissure talk about it, he really cites, players like Bishu. Like, what he goes, I would probably be in a similar headline right now if Bishu wasn't on this team.
Right.
Because he's able to communicate what I'm saying in the middle of the game. It is so difficult. And to hear somebody that's made the transition successfully and into great success, I think the turnaround for the Gladiators has been very, very significant. Maybe not the upward momentum that it looked like they might have had at the beginning, like they did, plateau a little bit. But at the end of the day, they're much better off now than they were prior to that. So to hear him talk about how difficult it was and how frustrating it was, and how close he felt like he was to being in the exact same situation of like, well, guess it just didn't work. Like, talent only takes you so far. We know Rascal has plenty of the talent in him, but he needs the rest of it, and he needs the help. And to top it all off, we basically have Effect put out an ultimatum on Twitter.
Yeah.
That just said, like, the team changes or I leave. That's the end of it. We've got to figure this out. It's not okay to just keep going the way we're going. And that to me just kind of takes a lot of the blame off of Rascal in my mind, when your players that are there that you're trying to keep that are playing out of their minds, right? Like, if we're being honest about how good Effect's been this stage, he's been just a complete 180 of everything we've seen from Dallas. Like, nobody was able to stand out in the first 2 stages, but now Effect is here, playing out of his mind, carrying the team to moderate success and just competitive matchups. And they looked better, right? Like, OGE got here, he made an immediate improvement. It felt like just some stability, some minimal level of talent and comfort with the role helped them a lot. It's just brutal. And at this point, if Effect goes, I would hit the full reset button for season 2 if I was Dallas.
Right,
I would be an expansion team, right? Like, if you want to keep one of these new acquisitions like Unco or OGE, fine. But other than that, everybody that was here that was part of creating the problem and building the culture that was an issue.
AKM. They'll keep AKM too, but
yeah, because they seem just so attached to him, which I get it. His soldier's great, but I mean, come on. Like, you look at the meta, you need more than just a Soldier 70. Soldier's falling off right now. Like, we're going back into Widowmaker, which, yes, he can play, but also, like, Genji and Junkrat are still very big parts of the meta game right now. Not things I really think he is worth playing on. I would just find a different player that had Widowmaker in his pool and whoever can play Soldier, honestly. Like, if you really want a Soldier that bad on a map, bring Taimu in. The guy plays just about everything that's not Tracer. So if you need that, you could, even if he is struggling, an option to get a player over their struggles is just keep running them out there. Like, nothing like stage time to clear off the issues. It might be better to let him do it in private in scrims and things like that. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much he's scrimming with how much they're playing him and things like that. So I don't know, just a lot of problems in Dallas right now. And as somebody whose team plays against them this week, right on time. Thanks, Astro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like, I feel for Rascal, because it's like, you think, like, all these guys are very smart people, right? And they have very complex and deep thoughts about Overwatch League. And just imagine, like, I'm just trying to think about, like, what if I had to, I know a little bit of French. What if I had to explain my very complex Overwatch strategies and thoughts on what we should do in French? And I would absolutely, well, I would almost certainly, after at a certain point, just break down and be like, you know what, guys, you guys do it, because I can't contribute here. Anytime if I have a contrasting point, I can't elaborate on what I'm trying to say at a level that's worth considering. So, like, I'm just going to go silent. Like, I could see that being the case for him. And part of that perhaps is on him, because, like we said, Fissure kind of took the reins, but he also had Bishu, like you mentioned, translating for him. It's like, give him, like, bring on these good players, and then don't just be like, okay, you know, you guys do everything, and if you don't, you're done. Why don't you bring on really great players and nurture them and give them what they need to be successful, instead of just throwing them to the wolves and just like keep dumping chum into the shark tank to, like, keep throwing your players out to the sharks and see who survives. I just don't think that's
there's a way they could have transitioned this team into a season 2 team, or you know what I mean, like a future team,
right,
and change the, you know, after stage 2 or whatever. They could have very peacefully, like when you look at San Francisco and what's going on with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not leveling up tremendously, but from the get-go, they were like, basically, when they announced their roster, you looked at it and you go, oh, well, they're going to really be aiming for season 2.
Yeah.
Because they just weren't getting their players until late. I mean, Dallas didn't have that baked in, and there was expectations that were going to make people upset.
A lot of expectations.
But I've seen teams with high expectations. There was a dream team that the Philadelphia Eagles had, where it just looked like they were going to be the best ever. But apparently you can't just throw a bunch of big names into a room and make them play NRG. 11 on 11 sports that well, right? Like, yeah. So yeah, we made that comparison a lot when NRG made their trade and built their roster before Overwatch League started. Yeah. Looked great, just did nothing. It takes more than talent at this level to compete. You know, you look at teams that, I mean, the bar is low. Teams that are more successful than Dallas, but you know, you look at teams like Houston, who maybe from a pure raw mechanical skill standpoint aren't as good as their record. If I'm being perfectly honest, like with the tracer gap and the tracer problem, that team has that huge gaping hole in it, and they're still able to put together a moderate amount of wins. They're still in the playoff conversation. Like, they're just on the outside right now, but everybody can very easily see a path for them to come back and get back in there. And that they do that off of teamwork and cohesion as a unit, not off of just bullying people. I mean, yeah, it looks like there's certainly fights where Lynx kill 17 people, and you're just like, oh, well, I guess they're gonna win this one. But a lot of the fight wins they have are just coordinated movement. They work as a team. There's a family atmosphere there. You know what I mean? They're definitely think of themselves as a team, not 6 players. And I don't think Dallas has had that at any point during the season so far.
Yeah, definitely a lot of turmoil, and that's why they were the meme of the week / news segment. They did, for what it's worth, they did provide a lot of coverage there for us, and that's where the Blue Bag podcast came from. We had some people in chat.
Did
earlier.
We remember to do the sad music when we read the announcement?
Oh, I started it off with the sad music. Don't you worry. And one thing to note is that Sander in chat says that apparently FueLUL do have a translator who is Violet, but not an in-game translator. So, I mean, one way or the other, it's going to be tough if you have to talk through someone else who's not also a player, because like trying to explain Overwatch to someone who doesn't really know Overwatch, or maybe they do, I don't know. It doesn't matter. We've talked enough about Dallas FueLUL, at least for now.
Yeah, and my understanding is that Violet is not a full-time, I sit with the Dallas FueLUL. Like, I think it's a translator that's on the payroll of the org, and they can probably like schedule it. But I think a lot of other teams are like, no, we follow the Korean players around, and or the NBS org.
Well, I was just wondering. I don't know anything about it.
I'm not 100% sure on the situation either. When I say they don't have a full-time translator, that's me repeating information from other content sources and things like that. So we don't have close ties into the org to know exactly how these things are going on for any of the teams. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a mess. And at the end of the day, like, why are you signing Korean players if your Korean players are having communication problems with your, like, you got to go full one direction or the other if they can't handle the, the half and half.
Yeah. I don't know. I would be interested to see. I want to see like a documentary of Dallas FueLUL season 1, but maybe it'll happen. But let's move on and talk about some other teams, please.
We do need an Overwatch.
Come on, button.
We do need an Overwatch Hard Knocks show.
My button is not working. Oh, no. That's.
Do another bad drop. Just say
we're
it.
Doing another. No. We got it. My button just wasn't working, but now it's gonna. It's tournament talk. Okay, there we go. We got some tournament talk, and let's go through the results real quick here. So we had Los Angeles Gladiators 4-0, Shanghai Dragons. We had Los Angeles Valiant 4-0, the San Francisco Shock. Seoul Dynasty 3-2 over the Dallas FueLUL. We had Boston Uprising 3-2 over New York Excelsior. Boo. We had London Spitfire 3-0 over Florida Mayhem, and Philadelphia Fusion 3-2 over Houston Outlaws. Not boo. Los Angeles Valiant 2-1 over the Dallas FueLUL. Seoul. Wow. San Francisco Shock 3-1 over Shanghai Dragons. LA Gladiators 3-2 over Seoul Dynasty. Philadelphia Fusion 3-2 over London Spitfire. New York Excelsior 3-2 over Houston Outlaws, and Boston Uprising 3-2 over the Florida Mayhem.
Surprised we didn't hear like a.
Yeah. Oh, it was there. I just didn't say
Second
it
last
verbally.
What a week this was, though. The last four matches all go to 5 games. The entirety of Saturday was 5 map sets. Just a phenomenal week. There was also Houston and Philly was out of this world good. New York and Boston was really, really good, especially when you're not a New York fan. And then we also had Seoul versus Dallas go a little too close. But a lot to react to this week. And before we get into it, I love how there's going to be a lot of indecisive opinions thrown around in these conversations. It's so crazy to me and fun that we're still at this point in the season. I think I've said this like 4 times, but I still mean it. I'm going to keep saying it. That we're still like, I feel like there's placement matches to be had. I'm like, I don't know who's better than who. Like,
no, the placement matches don't matter. That's the beauty. The placement matches don't matter because anyone can beat anyone. It's not like old Overwatch where Envious would be 40-0 right now, or Cloud9 would be 40-0, or Rogue would be 40-1.
And since we're talking about 40-1 and 40-0 teams, I do want to give you a little credit, because before a single match was played this week, when me and you were talking, we were mentioning how, there isn't really a top dog like there's been in the past. Like, there's no Cloud9 or Envious or Rogue. There's nobody running the table and taking down everyone. Yes, New York looks like hands down the best team in the league right now, but they're not dominant in a way that any of those teams have been.
You would never pick Envious to lose against any team except for Rogue, ever. Just like, period. They'd literally never lost to anyone else.
And you can't, and when you look at picking Houston, or not Houston, New York, you can really make a case for everybody. I can't remember who's higher at the moment, Gladiators or Houston in like the 7 spot. But like the 7, anybody 8 up, like you can make a case for, they've got a chance to beat New York right now. Like you can just make that argument. I wouldn't, but you could, and you wouldn't be absolutely crazy. So it's just, a lot of fun tracking this and keeping tabs on everything here. And the teams are really leveling up, rising to the occasion, the challenge. We're going to have the craziest playoff race. I can feel it right now. Like getting to those final 6 at the end of the stage is going to be nuts.
I didn't realize this until right now, but we have a 4-way tie. Well, the second tiebreaker is not there, but we have a 4-way tie in terms of win-loss record between London Spitfire, Seoul Dynasty, Boston Uprising, and Philadelphia Fusion, all at 16-8. That's kind of insane.
Yeah, there is.
What are who would have ever bet on this?
8th place is 3 games difference.
Yeah.
That happens so fast, right? Like, it can happen within a week. You could have the LA Gladiators at number 8 just go right up into 2. Like they have to go 2-0. London has to lose 2-0, and that would be it. That would or 0-2, and then that would flip those 2 teams. It is that close right now. It's absolutely crazy. Ton of fun.
Yeah, it's pretty great. But yeah, so New York losing, obviously the big one here. I mean, Boston looked good, which was kind of surprising because we thought not only was it not going to be close because it was New York versus Boston, but also the whole Dream Casper situation and having to have mistakes play just out of nowhere without really any sort of additional preparation. Just be like, hey man, so you're ready to play on stage, right? You haven't played on stage except for in the preseason. You're ready to go, right?
He did get a little.
Oh, did he? Okay, so
sightings at the end of
he got a couple of sightings, but certainly wasn't in all the scrims, at least not at a starter level.
It looked to me like prep, and this is how I kind of said it when I was like advising people a couple weeks ago to pick up mistakes in fantasy. It looked like they were prepping for the possibility of a Sombra meta and just didn't want the player to like have 0 stage time. To me, like that's the impression I got off of it. But yeah, now this time he had to pick up Genji for like, we've never seen him play Genji at a pro level before. He did an adequate job. He had standout moments on Widowmaker too. That's in his hero pool. But I didn't expect the kind of top end plays that we got from him there.
Yeah.
And I made this comparison again on Foul Play yesterday, but and I hate to mention the man, but it feels very much so like Dream Casper was kind of the McFran of Boston, as Selfless had DeFran in there, and they devoted their entire strategy and they devoted all their plans to supporting that one player. And I really think that they just kind of had Striker off on his own, and everybody's just like, let's just bring Dream Casper around and let him murder everything. And it worked for him. And it made Dream Casper look better than he was, which was still very good, obviously. Like, he still has to hit the shots. But when you get that much help, it's really easy to look like a pivotal, very important player. And it's something I question. I mean, raw mechanics are evident with Jonak, but it's something I question about Jonak is like how much of it is they've said outright, like he's their linchpin. He's what they revolve around. He's the center of the
nucleus
New York
of the team. Yeah.
So yeah, of course he looks like hands down the best player on the team. That's what's their game plan is to make him the most impactful player, on the server at any given time. So they're probably not going to be as successful using mistakes in that role, but I think we saw enough to think that they still clearly got a chance. Like maybe they can shift their focus to supporting Neko and let Dream Casper be part of that support team instead of be, the carry that Dream Casper was. It doesn't have to mean the end of this team. It doesn't even have to mean much of a reset button because they just beat the best team in the league. They
beat the best team in the league for sure. So yeah, I mean, and also I mentioned this on Foul Play yesterday as well. Is like even if Mistakes has been getting a little bit of playing time and he's not been like the IDD QD or the Mendo or the who's the other player? Grim Reality or the other Snow, Numlock, all these players that you basically forgot. I mean, if we didn't mention them as a meme every week, you probably forget that Numlock was in the Overwatch League. Rest in peace, Milton. But even given that he was at, I guess, like a step above at least than those players, he's still probably not at the full capacity of what he could be given full scrim time, full starting scrim time, more stage experience. I still think he has the ability to improve. So I think definitely Mistakes has a lot of way to go still potentially. And, Boston as a result, I mean, they're tied for second place in terms of map record. They're very close to being right now. They are very solidly a playoff contention team, and the pick'em result or the pick'em picks kind of lean towards people thinking that as well. Last thing I want to talk about before we break it down is Valiant right now. Looking pretty strong. They have not lost in this stage.
You're just poking the bear.
I'm poking the bear. I'm poking the bear, and I'm leaning. This is now two shows worth of me leaning into the Valiant and just really
digging your own grave.
Yep, digging 100%. My own grave here. They're looking real good right now. I mean, they haven't lost in the stage yet. They have two close matchups, which we'll talk about more. But like, are they the real deal, man? Do you think they're gonna I mean, well, we made a bet yesterday, so let's just talk.
And I want to be clear, I very well might lose that bet, but in spirit be 100% correct. So listen, the bet we made was whether or not the LA Valiant would leave this week 2-0. And if they're 0-2, I win. If they're 2-0, Blevins wins. And if they're 1-1, it's a push. So we very much so disagree on how the Valiant look this stage. And I'm going to make my case for it. Okay. They have a 4-0 win against the Seoul Dynasty, who threw with both hands in that matchup. Okay. We talked about it after it happened. It's basically how it went down. You can't discredit the Valiant for that, but you also can't build them up in your mind for it. Okay. Then they go on and they you can, you probably shouldn't do both things. Then they go on to beat the Shanghai Dragons 4-0.
Okay, I'll give you that one. That's nothing. That's nothing.
Sure, we can throw that one out. They 4-0 the San Francisco Shock. Now this one is a little bit the fact that it was a 4-0, fine. Okay. Nomi play. All right, that's all I'm saying. Nomi was in there. We've talked about
it's not Valiant's fault that teams decide to throw against them, though.
No, well, not Nomi. Super was sick. The plague ran through the Overwatch League complex this past week. So Nomi was in, and I don't think that team is the same with Nomi in there. He's a liability when he's on the field right now. So fine. And then they squeak by the Dallas. Just squeak right by 2-1. They can't even get to a decision on all of the maps. That one was a little too close for me to buy the Valiant as a strong team right now. So
do you want me to make my argument? Do you want me to make my argument?
I mean, the crux of my argument is that is the easiest schedule. As long as you give the soul throwing as like a granted into it, right? That becomes like the easiest schedule possible. So let's hear your argument.
Scoreboard. Let's move on.
I rest my case. Listeners.
Yeah.
But
well, I'm
just
gonna play a drop over you so no one can hear these facts.
Are coming?
No. No one can hear these facts. We'll break it down and let's start it off right here. You've got your dog here, the LA Gladiators versus my new dog, the Los Angeles Valiant. How is this match going to turn out, Death? What are your thoughts on this one? Oh, hold on. Let's do the picks. Let's do the picks here first.
I got lucky. Let's be honest.
Just like the Valiant have gotten lucky 4 times already, with every team deciding to throw against.
No,
them.
they were better than those teams. Just the 3 of the worst teams in the league on this schedule. I didn't look at the maps before I played this. Before I placed this bet, and it's very close. This matchup, however, is we've got a 4-0 on the side of the Gladiators in stage 2. We've got a 3-2 reverse sweep for the Valiant in stage 1. So this one feels like it should be a little bit in the Gladiators' favor when you look back at past performances. And I want to be very clear. I think the Gladiators are a better team than the Valiant right now. And I don't think it's close, but I think it's a decided thing here for me anyways, from what I've seen, just eyeball test. But when you look at these maps, it's uncanny. Like, who did the Valiant bribe to get this map set against this team? Because across the board, it is the best map of every single game mode for the Valiant, and it's like the worst or the second worst for the Gladiators. So when we look at Anubis, Valiant are 5-0-1, the Gladiators are 1-5. When we look at Numbani, the Valiant are 3-1-1. The Gladiators are 1-4. When we look at Ilios, the Valiant are 6-2. The Gladiators are 2-4. And when we look at Junkertown, we have a 4-2 record for the Valiant and 1-5 for the Gladiators. So this is going to be particularly brutal. I don't see the Gladiators crawling out of this one. I am going to give it a 3-0 because, like I said, I think the better team will find a way to flip one of the maps that aren't in their favor. These have always been either close or in the Gladiators' favor. Yeah. So I'm going to not even predict that they're going to win one of the maps because it's too hard looking at those records to pull the trigger on one of them and say, yeah, this is the one they'll win. But I'm not confident enough to call this a 4-0. So I'm going to give it to the Valiant 3-0 here and essentially assume I can't possibly win.
Yeah, you're playing for a push this week. I see.
I'm not making any more bets until I look at stats and numbers. So make your bet.
No,
offers
that's the
before we
beauty.
start.
No, that's the beauty of the show. You got to make that. You got to do it in you really got to do it on the show. Can't have no takesy backsies.
It's pretty low stakes. I've just got to call you Lord Belvins for an episode.
Yeah, so that's perfectly worth it. I got used to it the first like 15 episodes we did. I also went 3-0 for the Valiant, and the fans. 77% of the fans are picking the Valiant to win this one as well. Move right along and talk about San Francisco Shock versus Dallas FueLUL. We've both got San Francisco winning 3-0 here. 73% of the fans have the Shock as well. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Well, I think this one goes squarely in San Francisco's favor, right? Assuming everybody's healthy and can play again. I think they've got a really good chance to take this one down. Dallas obviously is in disarray right now. They weren't really using Rascal, so I don't expect a significant drop off in DPS production. As long as Effect's playing as well as he has been, the team has a chance at winning. But we saw it was the Valiant, right? When I think it was Cuddles left, we saw drop off from them for a week or two. Like, go figure, losing your head coach is going to make an impact in your ability to game plan and strategize, and most notably prepare for the other team and what they do, and be ready for their game plan. It's probably a lot easier to keep your game plan intact, but not to have a reactive one. So I think you have to give, I can't imagine Dallas pulling out a win this week. It's possible, but it's going to be tough for them. But if Nomi's been there because Super's still sick, then I think there's definitely an outside shot here for Dallas. But give me San Francisco 3-0. I see you have San Francisco as well, and the fans took San Fran 73%.
Yeah, I almost made a gut call to flip it, and honestly, if there wasn't this craziness, I might have flipped this one, but there's too many things moving against Dallas this week for me to really want it. Let's move on and talk about Shanghai Dragons versus Seoul Dynasty. You went with a Cowards 3-0 here. I'm going with a 4-0 in favor of Seoul. 85% of the fans have Seoul. Is there any chance of anything noteworthy happening in this match?
Yeah, their names are Guido and Zephyr. Seoul, I have no confidence in their ability to field their best lineup. I think they have incentive not to in this particular case. Like, this is the matchup where you almost should consider playing those guys. Yeah. So I don't expect them to miss the opportunity to make the wrong decision. So yeah, I expect there's definitely a chance for an upset. Ado's a fragger. Like, I really underestimated him. He has been strong for Shanghai. As the tank core with Fearless has looked really good. They just need to mesh better together. But I think we're seeing the talent kind of come into play here for Shanghai. They're playing better than they were in the past. Like, it's not just Undead popped off twice in 4 maps and that was the Shanghai matchup. It's now every map there's plays, like they're winning fights and with more frequency than they were before. I don't expect it all to come together and give them a win here, almost no matter who Seoul plays. But that's why I'm not willing to call it a 4-0.
How crazy. How much would past us minds be blown if Shanghai's first win was against Seoul?
They would be pretty far out there. I'm not gonna lie to you. Pre week 1, stage 1. Even honestly took a good little while, into stage 2 before we really realized Seoul was probably in trouble. Like, we just kind of wrote it off as the Mercy meta and said they're going to get infinitely better once that change goes through, and now oops. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I do want to see. I'm really watching the Gambler versus Toby playtime debate here, because we were split on foul play about what the correct option was here going forward, and I'm still iffy. Like, I do think Gambler, there's a good chance he's better on the Mercy than Toby is. But I think the team plays better with Toby out there, regardless of whether or not the mechanical skill is higher on the hero or not. So I'm very, very interested in how that plays out, because that's kind of the one questionable roster move that might not be questionable, right? Like, it's debatable, and there's some actual conversation to be had there. So I'm really watching that particular playtime battle.
I feel like they need to pick one and stick with it.
Yes.
And just
I think most every team needs to do that. Really, the only exception is the Gladiators DPS core in my mind right now, and they
Just
need to pick 3 and stick with it and stop picking 4, which they seem to have done.
Yeah, good old Surefour getting 300 something fantasy points. Jeez,
Surefour,
it's just insane. But let's move on. We've got Houston Outlaws versus Florida Mayhem. We both got Houston winning here 3-0. Houston is favored 86% here. I almost wanted to I almost think this might be closer than we might expect, but just because Florida has put up some relatively close matches. I mean, they went 3-2 versus Boston. They went 3-0 versus London last week, but yeah, I would not be surprised if they picked up a map or two here.
It's definitely possible. I don't see them pulling out the win, and in large part because, I mean, you've got Blizzard World, which is a bit iffy. You've got Anubis, which, despite Junkrat kind of being good there, like hasn't been in Houston's best map pool. But with Junkertown here instead of Route 66, like without that map that you look at it and go, Florida can definitely win that one. They're just kind of like all up in the air, except for Junkertown, which Houston's going to win. And then the other 3 are just like up in the air with a slight advantage to Houston in my mind. So I've got to go with Houston in the 3-0 here. I'm not going anything crazy, but I wouldn't have batted an eye if the percentage was 75 or something like that. So this is one of those things. If you're like a page 2.5, page 3,
this is a good flip. I think
you can make this flip just in the hope to gain significant ground.
It's a strategic flip. I think 86%. More people think that Houston is going to win over Florida than Seoul is going to win over Shanghai. So just keep that in mind in terms of how high that number is. So I think from a strategic standpoint, this is a really good flip. I'm not going to make it because I don't think it's actually going to happen. But again, if you're a page 2er or you're just looking for a high,
you wouldn't bet on it.
Reward,
but if you're losing in a game and need the points, right? Like it's worth.
Well, I would maybe you're getting good odds. Is basically what I'm saying on it. But let's move on here. And we've got Boston versus London. Deathblow. You've got some, let's see, what did we pick? We've got Boston winning here. You've got Boston in the 3-2. I've got 3-0. 71% of.
I have that wrong. I'm picking London here.
Okay. You've got London 3-2. I've got Boston 3-0. 71% of the fans have Boston. Surprisingly enough. Death, I know you have looked at the matches here or the maps here. What's the breakdown?
Yeah, so when we look at Anubis, that's Boston territory. They are 6-0 on that map. London is 3-5. So I think we can squarely put Anubis into Boston's favor here. When we look at Numbani, exact opposite. We've got 5-0 for London, and we've got 2-4 for Boston. So obviously, I think we have to assume London's going to take that one. Going into Ilios, this one is a little bit closer, but I think we can still give the edge here to Boston. They are 8-1 on the map. London's 5-3. So both teams have decidedly positive win rates. That one could go either way,
right?
But I'll give this one to Boston. Looking at Junkertown, it's a similar story. 4-3 for Boston, 5-2 for London. So who knows? Maybe the Ilios and Junkertown flip. Or no, you were right before.
Yeah, it is Boston. I was going to say.
And then when we look at Oasis here, we've got Boston 5-2. London is not going to win. Not going to win here anymore.
Ever.
For 7 on that particular map. If you're looking at a map and it looks like London's going to go to 5 this stage, that means London's going to lose.
That means they are out of here. Get them out of here. They're not.
I think struggles are going to continue to happen here for London. I think they need to figure out their DPS situation because they're not really playing Birdring all the time. And if I'm being honest, Birdring hasn't been playing great when he's been in there. I do think, just momentum and, getting comfortable and getting into a rhythm is important for a lot of players. I'm not going to say that's the issue with Birdring, but I don't think Hureg's the answer. Like, I do think Birdring when playing poorly, is a better bet for London than a normal Hureg. Maybe if he's standing on his head and carrying, obviously anybody's good in that situation. But we haven't seen that from Hureg, and I think they should just be playing Birdring to keep running him out there, get him beyond his problems, instead of maybe compounding them by making him think his job is potentially able to be lost or something like that, because
Right.
I don't think that's going to be the way forward for London. They need to get Birdring back. Not going to do it this week.
Yeah.
Or this match, I should say.
One thing to note here, and I don't recall if Boston played Ilios last week or not. But Ilios, known for being a relatively Pharah heavy map, at least some of them, and no longer have Dreamcasper. So I don't know how much we've seen mistakes on. I don't know how much we've seen mistakes on Pharah, but that could potentially be a wrench thrown into that match potentially.
It could be, but I think that Ilios is kind of like, it's not Nepal, right? Like I think Nepal is where we definitely would, need to see the Pharah. It's probably going to hurt them a little more there. But it's definitely a fair point. I mean, most of these map scores, and granted, Boston looks fine from what we've seen so far, but they're going to be a different team. Like they're going to flip maps as a result of the DPS swap. I think there's just going to be some maps that are worse, maybe some that get a little better as a result. So there's definitely still some figuring out of Boston.
Yeah, it's probably still a push, and there's a couple of these that the map wins are close. So you could flip one or two here and there. I do agree. I mean, Boston again, like they're riding some momentum after they're a team that has dealt with adversity, obviously with the loss of one of their star players, and has really risen to the occasion, at least in their first week back.
And when you do that, when you face adversity, come out of it in a positive way, and really defeat it, you come out as a stronger unit and as a stronger team as a result of it. So if Boston can get this win and extend it, they might go from being a team we thought was like out of season playoff discussion just based off of an initial slump to they might be the team of the stage for all we know at the moment. With New York with the win over New York and with New York looking human, you can sell me on New York losing once or twice more of this stage, to be honest, after what we saw this past week. Again, not something I'm betting on, but something that's possible, which could leave Boston with a big opportunity to be picking and choosing their opponents on their way through the playoffs.
It is possible that after this week, Boston would have, in the past 2 weeks, beaten New York, Seoul, and London. It's possible for that to have happened, which I think there are very few people out there that would have made that call. But let's move. We'll talk about Boston Seoul in a bit. Let's move on here and talk about Philadelphia versus New York. This is
what happened last time these teams played?
New York won.
Oh yeah,
stage playoffs.
It was the first time,
and then they won even more so before. So yes, it was good the last few times.
Exhibition games don't count, but you're right. It was stage one that.
Yeah, it was stage one that they beat them. Philly versus New York. We both got New York here 3-0. 88% of the fans have New York. I mean, it's again, like you've said before, like you're not gonna bet on New York losing. Like there's still like probably at least one more surprise loss away for us, considering, for me, like I'm never going to pick them to lose. I'm just putting that out there. In my pick 'em, I'm never going to do it. But I'm sure, Death, you can probably, like, you're still probably a loss away from really considering a lot, like picking
if
them
they
for a
lose
loss.
here, I would start to consider them capable of losing to top end teams, and I would really look at the maps. But part of the problem with looking at the maps is New York's been so dominant when
New York has a winning map,
right? What map are they bad on? Like you're not going to find those either. So we would definitely need to see a slump or like back-to-back losses or something like that before I'm going to predict it. There's no gains to be made. It's like picking Shanghai to win. There's just not gains to be made.
There's
from
just
this
memes to be made.
Yes. If you're playing this seriously, no matter how far back you are, unless you're like on page 4 and still trying and below people that aren't picking anymore, then you might need to make this deep dive and pick Philly. But I don't want any piece of it. Give me a 3-0 for New York.
Yeah, this has been a close match traditionally, win or loss. So I don't doubt Philly's ability to take a map, so I'm not going with the 4-0. That is for sure. Moving on, we've got Philadelphia with the match right afterwards against, not right afterwards. They have the night game on Thursday, and then they have the early on Friday. Philadelphia versus San Francisco. We both got Philadelphia here 3-0. 88% of the fans have Philly. Is there any shot of San Francisco taking this one?
I don't see it. You know, when you look at the numbers here for the Philadelphia Fusion, they might have the best two tracers in the league right now. I mean, especially recently. I'd still give, if I'm picking one to like build my team around, I'm still picking SBB. But in the short time he's played, Snillo has the best numbers, like per 10 minutes, per map. Break it down however you want. Snillo's probably at the top of the charts. You can go to Winston's lab, look at the numbers there. They're kind of eye-popping. When you couple that with how ridiculous Carpe has been just basically the entirety of the Overwatch League, now they've got EQO back for when they do want to flex into those other things. Shadowburn is a thing of the past. He's not a factor here anymore. But you just look at the options and what Philly's able to do. I don't remember the last time we saw bad Philly. I mean, we've seen Philly lose. Long
time ago.
But it's been a long time since bad Philly has shown up. I think those days are behind them. It's going to be crazy to think that they might actually level up in stage 4 when Sato gets here because of how good they're playing right now. Now, I don't know that I'm benching Fraggy either. He really is leveling up, and he might be somebody that, even if you think Sato's better right now, with how Fraggy's just continued to get better and better every single week, notably, I don't know how you can sit him down. You just got to want to continue to develop him, keep the team synergy.
They better not bench him. I want to buy a Fraggy jersey
to go with your shoes that you won't wear this week. But yeah, so this one, I think you have to pick Philadelphia right now. San Francisco's on the mend, but not there yet.
Right. They would have to. I mean, Super and Sinatra would really have to pop off, I think, for this to be competitive. Though, I mean, like you said, we haven't seen Bad Philly in a while. That doesn't necessarily mean that Bad Philly doesn't exist. It's just maybe it's much less prevalent. Moving on, we've got Florida versus Shanghai. Florida Mayhem versus Shanghai Dragons. We both got Florida here in the 3-0. 76% of the fans are in Florida. I mean, number 12 versus number 11. This is the shot for Shanghai, right?
No, that's going to be against Dallas next stage. Listen, I mean, Logix was, I don't know that he was sick. It almost sounded like a mental health situation, or like he just wasn't right for whatever reason. He wasn't good to go last week. Saya Player played great. I have a strong feeling, and like not even to bash Logix by any means, because he's really turned it up. But I just have liked Saya Player for so long. I really think he might be the answer for this team going forward. Or maybe the thing to do is something I don't think they will do, and that's occasionally sit Tavik down, right? Like if you want the Tracer and the Widowmaker, if you want Tracer and Widowmaker, though, it's hard to argue with how Logix has been playing lately on both Tracer and Widow, and how we've seen Saya Player play both. I would consider maybe, you know, and just on occasion, right? Like when you see Carpe and Snillo out there for Philly, you know, trying to mirror that situation a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely think Florida's headed in the right direction, and I think Shanghai is trying to head in that direction, and they're doing a really good job of it. But again, don't pick Shanghai to win until they do. Right? It's just crazy.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
76%, by the way, is nuts. That's too low.
It's way too low.
Go fix it, people.
Let's move on. And like we alluded to earlier, Boston is going to be playing against Seoul Dynasty here. You've got Seoul here 3-0. I've got Boston. Boston is 62% favorite here, according to the fans, which in terms of high noon pick'em is about as close to a 50-50 as you can get. It. Well, actually, I mean, the next match is actually as close as I think we've seen in a very long time. But Deathblow, you've got the maps here. Let's look at them.
Sure. So we're not going to come to too many decisive outcomes here, if I'm being perfectly honest.
It's looking pretty close, honestly.
Across the way. Very close. Volskaya, 7-0 for Boston, 5-0 for Seoul. A push. Blizzard World, 1-1 apiece. That's a push. Now, this is why I'm picking Seoul, is because when we look at Nepal, we're looking at a 3-3 record for Boston, 6-3 for Seoul. Now, I like to throw out when they've got the same number of losses, right? If there's just like, if it was 4-3 for Seoul, I'd throw it out and call it a push. But this is 3 extra times played and 3 extra wins. So I'm going to give the advantage here to Seoul, say they take down this map. When we look at Route 66, we've got Boston 2-4. We've got Seoul at 4-1. This one is in Seoul's favor. And then if it does go to 5, we've basically got ourselves a pretty close to a draw, but a slight advantage for Boston 5-2 to Seoul 4-3. I think this one's likely to be 3-1. If it does go to 5, I think Seoul's got a very good shot at it. It's not a firm advantage on Oasis for this team. And I don't think Seoul, I think they're going to be, doing all their goofy substituting during Shanghai. Like, they've got the outlet for their throwing here.
Right.
I expect them to use it and play the right players. And again, I think this is really the matchup to pay attention. Is it Toby or is it Gambler?
Right.
Because I expect this to be full on, everybody's in there, Zumba, Fleta, just everybody across the board. Jaehong, we won't be seeing Guido here. If we do, go back in time and flip it. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, so I think this one is it's a slight advantage. It's very flippable. But I think especially with the fans picking Boston as favorites here, I think this one has to be your flip of the week. Go to Seoul on this one. I'm doing it, and I'm in first place in leagues, and that's still what I'm picking.
So I think this is a perfect opportunity to let everyone's favorite host of the show make a pick here. That is, of course, the almighty Coin. It's everyone's second favorite host. Everyone, of course, has a different first favorite host. We'll go. What do you want to do? Heads for Boston, tails for Seoul.
Tails for Boston.
Tails for Boston. Okay, tails for Boston. The Coin picks. Ooh, the Coin picks heads for Seoul. So the almighty Coin is ruling. A smart guy. The almighty Coin is ruling in favor of Seoul. But speaking of coin flips, let's talk about London Spitfire versus LA Valiant. This is where my Lord bet will be won or lost.
Why has it got to be Oasis when I've got a bet on the line? Oh, man.
You've got London here 3-1. I'm sticking with my horse here. Valiant 3-0. London is favored by by 53% of the fans. This is definitely going to be a coin flip at the end of this. But Death, we've got maps for this one too. What are they looking like?
Yeah, there's a slight advantage to London here, but I'm definitely picking a 3-1 because it can't go to 2. Like, if it goes to 5, I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
So don't pick London with a coward's 3-0 here, because you're basically saying I think they're going to win 3-0 or 3-1 because they're never going to win 3-2.
Right.
So yeah, just another little pro tip there. But yeah, looking at this one, we got Volskaya 4-2-1. For the London Spitfire, 2-4-1 for the Valiant, so advantage to London in that particular map. Blizzard World 0-3 for London, 2-0 for the Valiant, so advantage Valiant there. I love that we're starting to get enough numbers to see matchups here on the new map. Looking at Nepal, 4-4 for London, 3-3 for Valiant. That's a coin flip. Now we look at Route 66. We've got 8-1 for the London Spitfire and 4-3 for the Valiant. Fun fact: the London Spitfire just like straight up do not lose on escort mode. That is their map. So looking at this one, we've got I've got to give them the push, right? To get where I need them to go, I've got to give them the push map on Nepal to take it, because if they lose Nepal, like that one right there, Nepal is like the only map in my mind that matters. The other ones seem decided. Volskaya could flip, but probably won't. And then Oasis is they're London still no in 7.
I was waiting. I was wondering if you're going to use that joke, and I like it. All right, well, let's bust out the almighty Coin. Let's just do it. Anything that's like 65% and under, I think we can have that be a coin. We'll have the coin weigh in.
Or if the show is split, like if
we're split, sure. Split. Okay, so what do we want? Heads for London, tails for Valiant.
Works for me.
Okay. Almighty Coin says, "Ooh, man, the Coin is siding with you twice today. We've got heads
right all the
London.
time, Blevins. When even the Coin agrees with me,
the Coin is betraying me.
You know you're off base.
The Coin is betraying me.
I can't even be rigging it because you flip it.
Yeah, I literally.
If you had a weighted coin, you would. Yeah, if it was a weighted coin, you wouldn't have picked the heads and tails that way.
Right.
So. Everything's coming up death blow here.
Everything's coming up death blow. We'll see if the matches end up going that way. I think that one's going to be a really good one. Let's move on, and we will talk about New York Excelsior versus LA Gladiators. Deathblow decided to not write down his pick. I
saw that. I'm going to find them right now.
I've got New York 3-0. 94% of the fans have New York here. One thing that's notable about this match is that New York did not play against Gladiators in stage 2. They had the opportunity. They were the one team that they that just didn't play against each other last stage. So New York has not played against Fissure Gladiators. So
You sound nervous.
that's something. No, I was nervous because I forgot what I was going to say. New York has not played against Fissure Gladiators, so that's something to note. I don't think it's going to make the biggest difference here. I think that New York is still a markedly better team, but there is a bit of an unknown factor here, and Gladiators have definitely looked a lot better since they played against New York in Stage 1. Anything else to add here about this match, Death?
Yeah, I'm a little worried from the New York side of things. I mean, not overly so, but they're playing Janus more than Mono, like not or tied now, right? Like they're splitting maps evenly at this point. And I've never thought that was right. Like I just think they should probably be Mono all the time.
I think Janus has gotten better though. He's started to not throw as much.
Yes. But yeah, I don't like Mono makes plays at times to me that I mean, neither of them are top 5 tanks, I don't think, right? Like that's kind of the quote unquote weak point on New York. They're still like in that conversation, right? Like they're still good. But they're just, I mean, they're carried by like number 1 players at the Zen position and at the Tracer position, and arguably the other DPS position too, right? Depending on who it is.
Right.
But I'm a little worried. I thought this past week, I mean, even Houston, like they figured out Libero, like they shut him down.
Right.
The 3 maps New York won were the maps where the big boss was in there. So it might matter who they're playing on DPS. You know, we might see some maps go the other direction. But I mean, we've talked, you're not picking against New York.
Right.
But that's the way they do it, right? Is that they just bully him off in the main tank position. Asher's able to contain Libero and stand as on like, you know, Surefour on Widow against the Pine is able to like play him to a draw, right? Because that's kind of what New York did. Like,
yikes!
That's what Pine was able to do against Houston. That why they were successful, right? He didn't beat Linkser in the Widow battles. He played him to a draw, and then the rest of the team was able to win because Houston stopped having that big advantage of constantly winning the Widow pick battle and just getting more value there in the DPS fight. So once that evened out, right? So that's what they're going to have to do if the Gladiators want a chance here. They're going to have to use their DPS to neutralize the DPS from New York, not beat them, just make them not dominate them, right? And then let the tank line win the battle here. I don't see it happening. I don't think you just shut down SBB, and you can maybe shut down one of them, but now with Pine back, they have the ability to make switches to keep you off guard and you know, kind of
Pine is
play the
real
guessing
good.
game a little bit. And yeah, Pine's looked very good so far. Stop playing him on Junkrat though. What are you doing? Just put Libero back out there. Like he's definitely the
I don't
better
remember
player.
why. I don't remember why. I guess if you want, like, I feel like he swapped to Junkrat as a desperation, but I don't remember the exact.
And they do it on like Blizzard World too, where you want the Widowmaker on the attack and then you want the Junkrat on the defense. I get it, but I just think we've seen Libero be good enough on Widowmaker that I'd rather have.
Right.
Like I think he's better on Widowmaker than Pine is on Junkrat.
I think honestly that they probably did that as a game time decision because Libero was getting shut down. I would not be surprised if that was the case.
But that was the case in week 1 too.
Right. Yeah. I think that's awesome that they are able to do that, or that they have done that, where it's like, you know what, Libero would normally come in here, but he's just not playing well, so we're going to play Pine. I like it a lot. But I still think New York very heavily favored here.
Yeah,
Let's move on.
As much as I question their early DPS questions, like should Pine just be in there all the time or what have you, I questioned it. I didn't call them out as wrong, right? And I think they've answered it that they've got a really good handle on it. So I feel very confident with their DPS swaps. The Gladiators, I feel confident when they make swaps that don't involve Silk Thread. And Philly, I feel confident when they make DPS swaps as well.
Yeah, for sure. Let us move on here, and we've got Houston. Is this? Wait, did I miss it? No. Okay. Last match here. We've got Houston versus Dallas. We both got Houston here with the Cowards 3-0, and 83% of the fans are also in favor of Houston. Any shot that the battle for Texas is going blue this week?
Well, I mean, when you look at the map pool, Route 66 is there, so that gives you an instant question mark on one of them. Blizzard World's still new, so yeah, there's an outside, there's a puncher's chance here for Dallas. They don't have to collapse or do anything like that, but I do think Houston still kind of plays. I mean, the meta seems to be pushing its way back into Houston's favor a little bit, if I'm being honest. Like we're seeing even teams like New York, like we talked about, like Pine on Junkrat. If they're willing to play Pine on Junkrat, like Jake Rat's probably going to be pretty strong on those same points. Widowmaker's back with a vengeance. Tracer's not necessarily downplayed, but I think that we've seen them win this matchup handily. They didn't play in stage 2, but how brutal is that? Houston's two of the 3 teams Houston hasn't had to play against, Shanghai and Dallas. But yeah, so that's who they're not playing this stage is Shanghai. So, but yeah, you can't predict it, right? Like there's no point in even like breaking down the maps in this one to me. Volskaya has been okay for Houston for a little bit. I mean, even when Clockwork was playing, like that's where he had some of his better maps and better performances was there. Also, they've been using Fact Fiction a good amount and to really strong effect. He's looked very, very good on Volskaya, where they've used him. That is in the pool this time. They used him on Route 66, which that's the strategy we've been talking about, Blevins. It's like when your main 6 has a weakness, that's when you start making substitutions to see what you can do to shake things up and turn it. I did think they looked a little better on 66, but what are you going to judge them against New York? Like, even if they've got it figured out, like that could have been exactly, if it was one of their best maps, what we saw them do against New York on that map is a reasonable outcome anyways, considering how strong New York is. So Route 66 is in play. I'm not going to say it's going Dallas's way or anything like that, but that's your chance, right? Is flip Blizzard World, because Houston's been okay, but not great on there, and then take 66 from them, and then you get into 5. And once you're in 5 in a Koth map with a player like Effect, you never know. You never know.
But they're at least not 0-7 like the London Spitfire. But that is going to bring us to the end of the matches for this week. We do have a couple of iTunes reviews, though.
Yes, we're going to be reading off the Around the Payload reviews here. We don't have an opportunity in the format of that show to read them there, but obviously that show is, man, as much as I love this show, that show is probably my favorite to be on. Like it's just so fun. Much fun.
It is fun to be on.
I'm really jealous you get to host it every single week. But so yeah, we've only got 3 reviews there, so bear with us real fast. There are going to be some names you're familiar with, I think, too. Noah895 debates, memes, and so much more with the 5-star review. I've been a listener of ATP since episode 1, and it quickly became my favorite OW podcast. You can expect a star-studded cast each week, lots of jokes, debates, alongside with some great information. The High Noon guys are seriously the hardest working guys / podcasters out there right now. A total of 5 shows on their roster now. So please don't forget to subscribe to their Patreon to support. I didn't even read all the way, Noah. You're my favorite. Round of applause for Noah. We don't even need to shamelessly plug ourselves when we've got fans like you to do it for us, man. Thank you so much. Another guy that loves to shamelessly promote us. Awesome idea. 5-star review from Blazin' Bob himself.
Yes.
This is currently my favorite Overwatch podcast. Blevins brings in guests both big and small, but all deeply involved in the Overwatch League scene. This league is an awesome medley of guests. Can't wait for more. So really, really appreciate that, Bobo. Thank you so much. Better luck next time when you are a panelist on that show. I don't think you've got the crown next to your name yet. As far as I'm concerned, it's just me and Taco.
No, there's plenty others.
Last one here comes from LaBelle Man, of course, a big Discord contributor for us. So great OW show, 5-star review. This is a great show to listen to for all things Overwatch and Overwatch League related. Blevins is a great host, and there are always excellent guests, occasionally including league casters. Always hilarious and informative. Signed to the Bellman. Thank you so much to all 3 of you. Really, really appreciate the support. If you haven't, subscribe to the new podcast feeds, Around the Payload, Foul Play, Ever Upward. Everything has its own feed. Blackwatch Report. Everything has its own podcast feed right now. I know even Blackwatch Report has been climbing in subscribers. Everything. They're doing really well, getting their legs underneath them. If you guys are at all into the contender scene, or if you just wish you could be, right, because you're too focused on Overwatch League, that's where we get our information from for contenders. So make sure you check it out. Some great interviews over there as well. But yeah, leave us reviews and subscribe to every single one of the High Noon podcasts podcast feeds on iTunes, it would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, all of that does in fact help. But I think we've done enough shameless plugging for this show, guys. That is going to be it. Remember, jump into the Discord over at discord.me/highnoonpodcast. All the details and such for the 12-hour stream and game night are going to be on that. Again, it's going to be Saturday, the 28th of April. So keep an eye out for that. And you can always find everything that you need over at highnoonpodcast.com. But that is going to be it for Deathblow, guys. I am the Blevins. Remember, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Hey guys, we're back for another episode of the Blue Bag Podcast.
Oh, bother.